VT smoothbot Novice. Okay, so for this type of scenario, smooth VT, of course, voltaic smoothbot is a variation of tracking where the bot constantly accelerates or deaccelerates. So compared to other tracking scenarios where the bot is just having a constant speed in left or right, or mostly constant, or have like 2 or 3 different speeds, they kind of switch between speeds very fast and then keep the speeds for some period of time. While the smoothbot accelerates or deaccelerates, changes speed all the time, and humans are kind of very bad at adapting to this type of movement, which is why it's good training. And Novice, of course, being out of the voltaic benchmarks Novice series. So for this type of scenarios, how do you play it? First things first is you always look at the target with your eyes. You don't look at your crosser, you look at the target. Then, what do? You try to understand or read, it's called reading, the movement the bot is currently doing. And then, or basically at the same time, you just copy the same type of movement onto your hand. So you try to replicate the movement you see on your screen onto your mousepad. And yeah, let's because the mistake of this would be to always compare the position of your crosser, look at your crosser, compare where it is compared to the bot, and then you can just always flick and try to correct it, and just always flick on the targets and such things. No, this is a wrong approach. You want to look at the target and copy the movement of the target onto your hand. Now what happens then is that basically you are basically somewhere on the map and you just keep the bot on the center of your screen, but you're still not hitting, right? So you kinda need to implement sometimes correction flicks onto the target, and that usually happens when the target changes direction. So you need a very small correction flick, or basically when you have fallen off too far. But try to keep this correction still very smooth and kind of slower. So it should be not like the flicks in static clicking. It should be really like more like the micro correction in static flicking. Like if you're doing the Bartos method for static clicking, it's the micro correction part you want to do, not the big arm flick, but really only the small arm flick. You don't want to correct, and always left, right, and always correct. You kind of really want to make. You want to track it with your eyes, copy the movement onto your hand, and then make one correction onto the target. So if you're off, you copy the movement, flick, and you should be on target. Flick should be on target. Alright? And try to really get it down to this one and not keep your correcting state. So if you're always over and under correcting, try to really make the correction flick onto the bot. More specifically, not on the bot, but where you think the bot will be in 100 milliseconds. So just slightly ahead of the bot. So just make this flick slightly ahead of the bot and then just track your, copy the movement onto your hand. Then I suggest that you focus to keep to stay in the center of the target. There is also a technique called edge tracking, but I personally do not do it. So I always try to keep aim for the center of the bot and try to stay on the bot. Then this is called a smooth spot. So try to keep your hand as smooth as possible. So slow down your movement so that it does the minimum amount of motions required. So as I said, it's the same basically as you don't over and under flick like this, but you kind of just try to make it look as clean as possible, basically. And for the movement part itself, you can basically read very well when the bot changes directions or speeds, and try to react to this movement change, and even try to kind of predict the movement it will do after you see the movement change. And this is different than predicting the movement itself. Like, you don't want to predict when you swap directions. You want to see when the bot changes speed or directions, but then you predict which type of change it will be, basically. And this is part of reading the bot, and this will be part of reading the enemies in your game. Like, now I know that it will change directions, and then you see that my cursor kind of goes slightly ahead in this direction. And that is fine after reading the movement. It's important that you don't skip the reading phase. So it kind of lets you don't predict, oh, it will go left now, and you go to the left. No, you really wait for the bot to initiate the movement change. And it also does a very gradual, a very slow movement change for you to read it, actually. And so I have the steps. Look at the bot. Flick where the bot will be in 100 milliseconds. Copy the movement onto your mouse hand. And read the movements of the bot. And repeat, basically. These are your steps to do it. Then I want also to shortly add a sensitivity part, so it should be the same sensitivity as your dynamic clicking, or more or less your overall sensitivity. So it should be slower than your static clicking, or slower than your Valorant or Counter-Strike sensitivity, but should be faster than your reactive tracking. Basically, sensitivity. So reactive tracking is usually with very big targets, which profits a lot from fast sensitivities. And this should be kind of like a middle ground, so the middle ground of the sensitivity range. Field of view, I would leave it 103%. Now, another thing I want to add with this scenario is that it actually trains you to use your entire mousepad. So try to lift your mouse only when it's really required. So you see the bot kind of can go more in one direction than the other, and then you will end at one edge of your mousepad. So I will now increase my sensitivity to kind of simulate it a little bit more. So don't panic if your hand reaches one end of the mousepad or goes close to it. Really lift your hand only if it's really absolutely required. Try to keep tracking it and use also the outer edge parts of your mousepad that you are not so well in using, basically. So of course you have more training in the center of your mousepad. But really use the scenario to also use the more outer parts of the scenario. So don't just always reset. Really try to keep at it with one motion. Don't reset in between if you don't have to. If you have to, then of course reset. If you kind of reach the outer end of the mousepad, you don't see it on camera, but it's the edge is right here. You see the shadow of my fingers. Then my mousepad ends. So this is basically the furthest I can go. And then here I feel really the outer stitching of my mousepad, so I know I have to switch directions. This is one of the scenarios which you can play with sound on, then you hear if you are on target or not. But keep in mind that your reading happens with your eyes. And so kind of using sound kind of will help your scores a little bit, but it doesn't help your training as much. Especially if you are playing a game where you don't hear a sound confirmation if you hit targets or not, then it is entirely useless and turn off sound. Even though you want to train mouse control, but it's still kind of a skill which you kind of should want to decide if you want to train it with your training or not, using the sound. Like in theory, I would suggest that you train your reading with your eyes more, but at the same time, you also kind of always look on the target, and so you might not see when you fall off too well, but you kind of, well, it's kind of a give and take. Like there is some use in training it. Because I said you kind of can also train it without crosshair. You just look at the bot and you kind of get the confirmation that you missed the bot, and that triggers your, oh, I need to improve something. So it can be beneficial for your training. It's just kind of don't use it to increase your scores, because you have better responsivity times. You react faster to hearing than you react to visuals, basically. So don't abuse it for high scores, but use it really for training. Like really to get a confirmation if you are on target or not. And understand, okay, here I missed, here I hit. Okay, so if you have any further questions, feel free to ask me in the comments down below, or ask me live on stream. I'm streaming on Twitch, so feel free to stop by, say hi. I'm playing mostly Overwatch. And yeah, see you next time. Bye bye!